Hello, everyone. My name is Frank Thomas Roy. I'm an ESL teacher here at AiA. Today, we are going to be discussing Lexis, what is Lexis, and lexicology. And before I begin, I would like to thank our director, Mr. Vesana, for a couple different reasons, and I will tell you. I've been teaching English and teaching methodology for about 14 years now. And it seems to me every time I go to get recertified, it freshens me as a teacher. So although some of us may have been get our certificate in teaching, I think it's very important that we do these type of workshops. Even for myself, I'm 54, and last year I did a refresher course in teaching methodology, and it really helps you in the classroom. You will bring a lot back to the classroom, and you will see a difference in your teaching. So I think this is very important, and I want to thank our director for doing this. I was given this instruction about 2 weeks ago, and when I started doing my research and lexicology, I see that I was developing as a teacher better in the classroom. So I think it's very, very important that we refresh and watch how we're teaching in the classroom. So I want to start off by saying that. Number two, there are many points in lexicology. We could do a month short course just in Lexis. So I'm going to point out some key points in my video and my PowerPoint. So you could try some of this in your classroom. And I have a lot of videos besides the ones that are in my PowerPoint from some previous training, if any teacher want to borrow some of that. So I'm going to give you some examples today of what I do in my classroom and how I teach the language. For the most part, what I'm going to be explaining is how to teach the language in chunks, okay? So what I mean by that, teaching phrases, teaching whole sentences with your vocabulary and your sight words, and then at the end you form in proper grammarization, okay? So follow along with me, and we will start. So what is Lexis? Lexis refers to individual words or sets of words that make up a meaning in context. We have denotative meaning, which is meaning of words, described words. Example, a dog is a common animal with 4 legs, especially kept by people as a pet or to hunt or guard things. This meaning is called denotation, denotative meaning, okay? If I use this word in a different form, figurative meaning, for example, dog, for example. If someone calls a man a dog, then they strongly disapprove of him. Or if someone calls a woman or girl a dog, they mean that she's unattractive. So the meaning of the words, whether we're using them in idioms, you have to explain to the students what the meaning is in context. That's what Lexis is about in lexicology. So if we're just teaching a vocabulary and it's not in context, then we might not know how to use that word. So it's very, very important for the students to meet those words frequently in phrases and different phrases with that word. So if we're doing idioms or some higher level Lexis, then that would be for the higher level students. So right now we're just going to focus on some primary classes. Lexicology teaching methodology. In the next slides, you will see some examples of my teaching methods in teaching Lexis and some of my practices in lexicology. Keep in mind, there are many parts of speech to cover in Lexis, and these demos are aimed at our primary students here at AiA. So take note, I'm teaching language. I'm not teaching primarily vocabulary or grammar. I'm teaching language in chunks, okay? You will find some of the notes in your TKT on different parts of Lexis. And we can cover those in another video if you would like. If you like this video, we can move on to the higher levels of Lexis if you would like. So, how I teach is vocabulary and context. Take note that this method is widely used with teaching Lexis with visuals, like flashcards, and miming in the primary levels. I use flashcards a lot for reading. I will now give you an example of teaching Lexis in context by using the content of visuals. Step 1, use a flashcard, show the students a photo of not just a vocabulary of common sight words, but a flashcard with a combination of 2, including some action words. For example, flashcard with a picture of cookies, okay? The students usually, they will call out cookie. If there's more than one cookie, then you can straighten them on the grammar, call it cookies. And what you want to do is write that first word on the board, okay? Then you show them a picture of milk, show them a picture of 2. In my example, I will show you this one here. They will start giving you the vocabulary. They will say eat. They will usually say eat, cookie. So we put on the board in plural form, eating cookies. And they might say boy or girl, okay? So remember that the words are coming from them. The words are coming from the students. So they actually own the word. You didn't give them the word. So you would put all your vocabulary on the board. What we're trying to do is for them to form a phrase or sentence just by looking at the flashcard, okay? You're creating language through visual. So the students will brainstorm, as I said, then they will recognize boy, girl, write the words on the board. The last thing you want to do is add the sight words onto the right. I will show you an example. In Lexis, form comes last. The form comes last. Let them visually recognize the vocabulary, all in the picture, add the sight words on the board, and then they can start figuring out how to make the sentence. So remember, the form comes last in Lexology, okay? The main point. So the end result in the words comes from the students, which is student-centered, not teacher-centered teaching methodology. And with guided practice, show the students, and then they can start to form the sentence. Here's the flashcard I used first. This is the flashcard I used, is my primary flashcard. So at the end, they have worked out the sentence, okay? What are they doing? The boy and girl are eating cookies and drinking milk, okay? So what I did is I'm forming language. I'm not forming boy. I'm not forming girl. I'm not forming milk. I'm not forming cookies. I'm not teaching vocabulary. I'm teaching language. So this is just one example for primary. I use this in primary 1, for example. I did a short demo in P3 class. I started out with pen. So all the students, we write pen. They said notebook, and then this is the main flashcard that I used. Okay, and then they brainstormed all the vocabulary by themselves. I did not give it to them. So this is how we started out. The students came up with these words: pen, notebook, write. So I had to correct them on write in the form of the grammar, writing. So they recognized the grammar. She, phone, looking. Okay, so that's step 1. And then at the bottom, we just added the sight words. And then the third step, they had to work out the sentences. So you're getting the grammar at the end, but we're teaching the language. Chunks of language is what I'm teaching. So the question was, what is she doing? Okay, she is looking at the phone and writing in the notebook with her pen. That's what they came up, that was the end result. They met the rubric that I set out for them to do. So they're learning a lot. In one form of Lexis is they're learning the writing. They're learning how to form a sentence in the language that I'm trying to teach. So it covers a lot of bases. Here is an example of my grade 1 class. In the science, they had a subject in there with my senses, okay, which is your nose, ears, eyes, mouth, tongue, or fingers. So how I taught this is grade 1, they pretty much know the vocabulary already. They're familiar with your nose, your ears, your eyes, because they have a lot of repetition with the vocabulary. So in Lexis is what you want to do is broaden the vocabulary, So how I taught it, for example, you can listen to our student in this video here. Okay, notice how his reading ability, he wasn't reading from the board, but he did look at the board a little bit as some guided practice. So this is good for them reading, and he's just basically reading off of that flashcard how he was taught the language. So now he won't say, this is my nose. This is my nose. I can smell with my nose. These are my ears. I can hear with my ears. So what you're doing is you're broadening the vocabulary and the lexical sets. So make sure when you're teaching in lexical sets. For example, if you were teaching my classroom, you would teach table, book, pencil, eraser, okay? Stuff that they know what's in the classroom, you have a better chance of getting the language from them. So make sure when you're teaching, you're doing in lexical sets, okay? That's very, very important. Here's another student in the same P1 class reading. Okay, so that's one of our students in P1. Okay. The higher levels in lexicology, the introduction of prefixes, suffixes, or compound nouns, these meanings can change depending on the form. So you really have to express that to the students on how to use the words when you're putting them in phrases. In context or out of context, it makes a big difference. So they need to know that some words are used for different for meanings. So they need to know all of that. Adding affixes is called affixation. Compound nouns get their meaning from being together. All right. So these are some other workshops that we can do. I can do another video for you in Lexis and higher levels if you would like. Collocations are words that often occur together. Fixed expressions and idioms. There are many stages in Lexis to know as a teacher, and the list goes on and on. But what the importance is not to teach the grammar points in single vocabulary aside from teaching the target language. Remember, focus on the language, have a good learning outcome established before you teach, and make sure they hit those target points on the language as a whole. You'll have a better chance of getting them to speak and respond. Keep it simple. Know your learning rubric outcome before each lesson. Use student-centered teaching methodology of teaching. You notice how in some of my classes, I don't give the answer. I wait for it to come from the student. When it comes from them, they own it, okay? And usually when they come up with the answer, they feel good about themselves, praise them, and they won't forget it. So as teachers, we want to give them the answer. Don't so much let it become more student-centered, okay? Let them work for it. Don't give it to them. Let the words come from the students so they can own it. Proper guided practice with repetition is key. It's very important to the students meet this language over and over again. Keep in mind, if you are trying to communicate in a second language in another country, okay, this is the question. If you were trying to communicate in a second language in another country, would you use a grammar book? Would you use a dictionary? Hopefully you answered no to both of my questions. You would most likely use a phrase book. So with that in mind, teachers should be teaching language, okay? So you couldn't ask somebody directions with a dictionary and a grammar book, how to get to the market, basically. It would almost be impossible. So that point right there feeds directly on what Lexis and lexicology is. Okay, we're teaching language. Key concepts to remember. Learners need to fully know the meaning of words. Learners need to meet the same words over and over in phrases and contexts. Please know your lexical sets. Lexical sets, I explained that about the classroom. All the different words that go together, lexical sets, okay? The beginner level teach vocabulary and phrases in sets of lexical, as I explained. Pay close attention to chunks of language, not just the vocabulary and the grammar alone, and you'll have a better result in their listening and speaking and reading, and also writing. I would like to thank you, all teachers and director, for allowing me to put this video together. I hope it meets your needs and you enjoy it and keep it in your heart. If you would like some copies of teaching methods in Lexis, I have many to share with you. And I would like to thank you, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you very much.